Hey, it's Kami Gumpla. This time we're going to build the HGIBO. How do you even pronounce this? Helmwige Reincar. I don't really even remember what this guy did in the anime, but I think it's hands down one of the coolest looking mobile suits in the series. We got 3 large runners, 1 small runner, and 1 rubber joint runner. The nice thing here is that the sticker is very small, so not a whole lot of masking is required. The upper body proportion looks very nice. You can get this downward looking menacing pose very easily. The thighs look beefy enough, unlike some of the other IBO kits. Overall, I'd say that you don't really need to adjust any body proportions on this kit. The real money on this kit is obviously the giant weapon, which is surprisingly very hollow and light. It mounts on the kit very well and it stays rather balanced. Compared to the previous Grimgird kit, pretty crazy that other than the legs, it's really difficult to see that these two got the same frame. Design-wise, I'd say it stays pretty consistent with the bulkier look of a Season 2 designs. The issues on this kit are all pretty standard, I'd say. You got the arms that's got a difficult seam line down the middle to deal with, mounting holes that need to be plugged. The seam line on the backpack has this part inside that needs some modification. Not a whole lot of hollow parts that need to be filled. You got under the feet, obviously. You got the back of the thighs that are just visible enough. And the back skirt that's also large enough that, I think that it should be filled. The middle of the chest needs color separation, which I don't really get why they didn't make it right to begin with. And the weapon needs some color separations as well. Anyways, let's get to it. For the backpack, you'd have to paint the inside part first, then do the seam line removal with the inside part masked. Oh, and I snipped off the thrusters, painted them on their own, and snapped them in from the bottom. Similar situation with the arms, you have to paint the joints first, and do the seam lines with the joint parts masked. This is my first time doing shaded paint on this channel, so I might as well go over how I do it. For the frame, I'm just using black primer as the base paint. For joints, I'm doing a metallic paint. For the rest of the frame, I'm doing a shaded gray paint. The way I do it is first dilute down the main color. I usually add the same amount of thinner as the already thinned paint and turn the compressor down to very low. I test the paint to make sure that it's thin enough to flow smoothly at low pressure, and I paint the center of every surface lightly. After which I use a lighter color as the highlight. The highlighter needs to be thinned down even further and the pressure needs to be even lighter. The highlighter only needs to be applied to the very center of each surface. Make sure you don't overdo it. And as you can see, the contrast can be a little harsh, so I usually finish off by spraying a very light, thin layer of the main color to the entire part. And the contrast becomes very natural. It might be easier to see the effect on the blue parts. I'm using cobalt, magenta, and black to come up with the shaded paint, and then painting it on the entire part. Afterwards, I'm adding white to make the primary color. Then, same thing, light, thin paint at low pressure to the center of the surfaces. After that, same thing, add a little bit of white paint to the primary color to come up with the highlighter and apply it to the very center of the highlighted surfaces. As you can see, the contrast is still pretty harsh. After finishing it off with the primary color, it's looking a lot better. This is not the easiest method to shading, but I think it's the best way to guarantee clean results. For this little graded mask part, I painted over the finished part with black acrylic paint, and then I wiped off the excess paint with acrylic thinner for this nice color separation. I know Asian modelers usually use Tamiya enamel paint for this, but I'm having trouble finding them in the United States. Tester paints are supposedly enamel too, but I found that they still dissolve lacquer paints to a certain degree, so they're not ideal for this method. I use the same technique on this little silver detail on the skirt as well. The thing about IBO kits is that the kit gives you a lot of details, but you really need to color separate them to make them pop, right? Acrylic wiping, masking, whatever you gotta do, the more the better. For decals, I'm using a combination of the official IBO decals from Bandai and orange HIQ Parts decals. And of course, I'll address the mounting holes by showing my own product here. I'll be listing these around 3mm plugs on my Etsy store, link in bio. They come in 3 sizes, and here I'm using the medium-sized ones. The result is just a bit too clean for me, so I'll be doing a little bit of light weathering. I'm starting with mixing a dark brown paint with acrylic paints. It's definitely more of a black with a hint of brown for that oxidized look. First, I'm getting some paint onto this little makeup sponge and removing the excess on some paper tissue. I'm applying to most of the edges of the model in an irregular pattern. The makeup sponge itself was kind of not enough, so I'm using this sponge brush to put bigger scratch marks onto the surfaces of the model. One last layer of flat coat, and we're done. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. It kind of takes a while for me to shoot these videos where I have to review and finish a full kit at once, and that slows down my upload schedule. So I was thinking maybe I should start splitting them into 2 parts. One with my initial thoughts on the kit, and one with the actual build process. Still thinking about this though, depends on how long my next build takes. In any case, see you guys next time.